Coffee Table Styling 101, the formula for a perfectly styled tray and table. Okay, confession time. For years, I had no idea how to style a coffee table. I'd buy a cute tray, I'd throw a smell good candle on it, maybe a book, and it just never looked like the ones I would see online. It always just felt random, like a little off, like I was missing something. And as it turns out, I was missing something. I was missing a formula. Because styling a coffee table isn't random at all. There's actually a method to it. And once you know it, you'll never look at a coffee table the same way again. Today, I'm breaking down exactly how to style a coffee table, starting with the tray, since that's the heart of it, and then building out to the whole table. By the end of this video, you'll have a formula you can use again and again. So let's get into it. But before we do, welcome to Home Decor 101, your YouTube home decor channel. Don't forget to check the description box for a curated list of items perfect for your home. So first off, let's talk why the tray matters. We're going to start with the tray because honestly, this was the missing piece for me for the longest time. A tray does something really important. It creates a zone. Now, without a tray, objects on a coffee table can look scattered or like they're just sitting there with no relationship to each other. But the moment you put a few objects on a tray, your brain reads them as a grouping, an intentional little situation rather than just random stuff. Now, the tray itself can be wood, leather, marble, woven, or metal. And no matter what any of these design gurus try to tell you, the material is less important than what you do with it. I personally love a leather or wood tray because it adds warmth, but a marble or mirrored tray can look beautiful too, especially in a more glam space. So think of the tray as the frame for the little still life painting. Everything you should place on it should feel like it belongs in that frame together. Okay, so now let's move on to the super sauce, the formula. And I promise you, once you see it, you're gonna start noticing it in literally every styled photo that you see online, that you see on Pinterest, or that you see in magazines. Every well-styled tray has three things: something tall, something low, and sometimes something living. Now, that something living is kind of a catch. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But more often than not, you will see something living or an element of something living, and we'll get into that. Now, something tall is your anchor. It gives the eye somewhere to land first. This could be a vase, a stack of books with an object on top, a tall candle. This piece sets the height of your grouping. Then we have something low. Now this is what balances it out, and it's usually a smaller object like a small dish, a stack of coasters, a little box, or a low candle. This creates contrast against your tall piece and keeps things from feeling super top heavy. Now something living is the detail that makes everything feel fresh and real. Now for me in particular, this is a non-negotiable. But what you decide to do with it is your business. Now, it could be a small plant like a succulent, it could be a few stems in a vase, or even a single sprig of greenery in a tiny bud vase. And when I say elements of nature, I'm starting to see a lot of the wooden balls or the wooden balls like on a string. I have some images showing because I know I'm doing a horrible job of describing it. And even though that's not something living, you still have elements of nature in the fact that it's made of wood. And I like the fact of having something living. This is the difference between a table looking stage for a photo and a table that looks like someone actually lives here. So, tall, low, living. That's it. That's the formula. 3 objects, varying heights, one of them alive. Everything else is just refinement. And speaking of refinement, let's talk refining with texture and color. Because once you have your tall, low, living elements, the next layer is texture and color. You want at least 2 different materials represented on your tray. So if your tray is wood, maybe your tall item is ceramic and your low item is brass. Or if your tray is marble, maybe your tall item is glass and your low item is wood. The contrast in materials is what gives the tray visual richness instead of just feeling flat. For color, I like to follow a simple rule. Pick one dominant neutral and let one object introduce a secondary color. So if everything is mostly white, cream, and wood tones, maybe your vase has a touch of green from the greenery, or one object is deep terracotta or blue. You don't need a rainbow. You need one moment of color that ties into the rest of the room. Now, if you have a maximalist room, you can definitely have a lot of fun with this. I feel like that's the only time you can just go crazy and all of these colors and patterns you've been looking at and thinking about can really come into play. So I feel like we've done pretty good on the tray, but now let's move beyond the tray because the tray is just one zone on your coffee table. A beautifully styled table usually has 2 to 3 zones total, depending on the size of your table. Now, zone 1 is your tray. We just covered that. Zone 2 can be a book stack. This is one of my favorite elements because it adds height and personality. You can stack 2 to 3 books horizontally. And here's a tip. Choose books based on the color of their spines and covers, not just the content. A stack of books in coordinating neutral or earthy tones instantly looks more designed. Then place a small object on top of the stack, like a little dish or a small sculptural object, even a candle. This gives your eye a second tall moment on the table that's different from the one in your tray. Zone 3, if your table has room, can be something organic and a little more relaxed. So this could be a stack of coasters, a single oversized item like a sculptural bowl, or even just a beautiful candle on its own. This zone is meant to feel a little more breathable. Not everything needs to be a tight grouping. The key principle across all zones is to vary your groupings. If your tray has 3 items, your book stack should feel a little different. Maybe it's just 2 items. This variation keeps the table from feeling too uniform or like a kit for coffee tables. Okay, in all of our going ons, one tip that I cannot stress enough is to leave room to breathe. It's the difference between styled and cluttered, and it's something I had to learn the hard way, let me tell you. One tip I think I say in every video, and if I don't, I'm saying it now. Negative space is part of the design. Your coffee table needs a little bit of empty space, both for visual breathing room and frankly for function. If you want to write down a list, you don't want to have to move 3 trays and a stack of books out of the way. People need somewhere to put down a drink or a plate. A coffee table that's completely covered in objects, no matter how beautifully styled each one is, starts to feel busy and a little impractical. A good rule of thumb is this. Roughly a third to half of your table surface should be empty. If you're looking at your style table and it feels like it's a lot, it probably is. And pulling back on 1 or 2 of the items will almost always improve it. And last but not least, I don't want you just to learn this, I want you to be able to execute it at home. So let's talk where to find styling pieces. Now this is just a quick little rundown of where I find pieces for this kind of styling, because building up a little collection of these objects over time makes this so much easier. So I know I usually recommend Amazon first, just because it's so convenient. But this time, I'm going to say a thrift store or home goods are my first run. They are amazing for trays, vases, and small little decorative objects. And honestly, mismatched vintage pieces often look more interesting than anything bought new and matching. And since we already mentioned Amazon, I guess it's time to mention them again. They are great for convenient pieces. They have a really large variety of items, and that's one reason that I love to shop there. But there's also Etsy, which is wonderful for really unique ceramic vases and small objects, and all of their pieces, I won't say all, but a lot of their pieces are one of a kind, which is awesome. And then when it comes to books for your coffee table, check out used bookstores or thrift stores. I know we have a store here in Oklahoma. I think it's called Half Price Books. And if I'm just using books to decorate, I don't really honestly care too much what the book's subject matter is, and I really don't care too much what the cover looks like. Because one thing to always remember, you can take the paper or plastic cover off of the hardcover books. And no matter what the jacket looks like, sometimes the cover itself is a different color. And that's one of the biggest tips that I have. Rip those jackets off, see what the book actually looks like. It could be something that you can use. And that's the formula, guys: tall, low, and living for your tray. Then layering in a book stack and an additional zone, leaving room to breathe and tying it together with texture and a touch of color. The best part about this formula is that it works no matter your style, whether you're going for old money, coastal, modern, industrial, anything in between. The principle stays the same, only the objects change. Now, once again, I've linked some of my favorite trays, vases, and styling pieces in the description box below. So if this was helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you in the next one. Happy decorating, friends. Bye-bye.